My sister called me a freeloader while squatting in the house I bought, so I cut her off. Then the move I made next flipped her world upside down. I'm Megan, 34, female, a single mom to my amazing kid, Ethan, 10 male, who's literally the only person in this world I truly care about. I work as a project manager in Austin. I make good money now, about $280,000 a year. But damn, the road to get here was absolute hell. So I guess I should start from the beginning. My family has always been completely messed up, to put it mildly. My parents always had a favorite child, and it sure as hell wasn't me. My younger sister Amber could do no wrong in their eyes. She was the gifted one, the special one. The one who deserved everything while I got nothing. I still remember that day so clearly. I was 19. Had just gotten my acceptance letter to UC Berkeley. I was so freaking excited. The first person in our family going to a prestigious school. I ran into the living room waving that letter around, and my parents called me to sit down with these weird, serious expressions. "Megan, we need to talk about college," my dad said, not even looking me in the eye. I sat there still excited, thinking maybe they were going to surprise me with something for graduation or whatever. Yeah, I was that naive. "We've used your college fund for Amber," my mom said, like she was telling me we were having pizza for dinner. "She's been accepted into this exclusive arts program in New York. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I just sat there completely stunned. "You watched my entire college fund." All of it. They nodded like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. "You can take out student loans," my dad said, "but this opportunity for Amber won't come around again." I was done with their favoritism and the way they were using me to achieve Amber's dreams. I figured I'd do better alone. So that night, I packed everything I owned into my crappy Honda Civic and left. Nobody even came out to say goodbye. I drove straight to Austin, sleeping in my car the first few nights, until I found a tiny apartment in the first of many shitty jobs. For years, all I heard from my parents were updates about Amber. Amber artwork was featured in a student showcase. Amber met this famous artist, Amber. Never once did they ask how I was doing or if I was even alive. I worked 3 jobs while taking classes at community college, mornings at a coffee shop, afternoons doing data entry, evenings, waiting tables. Some nights I slept in the break room at work because I couldn't afford bus fare. I ate leftover food from customers' plates when nobody was looking. Yeah, not proud of that. But try going hungry for 3 days straight and see what you do. When I finally finished my degree, I got an entry-level job at a tech startup and worked my way up. I met Ethan's dad there, Jason. He seemed like a good guy at first. Smart, funny. Actually paid attention to me. We got married after dating for a year, and Ethan came along a year after that. Then I found the text between Jason and his 22-year-old intern. Yeah, that old story. I didn't even bother with the screaming and crying part. Just packed his crap in garbage bags, set them by the front door, and told him he could leave on his own, or I'd throw everything off our balcony. His choice, to his credit. He's never missed a child. Support payment shows up for Ethan's birthday and Christmas, and that's about all I need from him, honestly. So for the last 8 years, it's been just me and Ethan against the world. My kid is seriously amazing, smart, funny kind. He's in the gifted program at school, plays soccer, and is obsessed with building these crazy, detailed Lego structures. Every night I read to him before bed, even though he can read perfectly fine on his own now. It's our special thing. I worked my ass off, got promotion after promotion, and finally bought a nice 4-bedroom house in a good school district last year. Life was actually pretty good. I didn't need my family, I'd built my own life on my own terms. Then last month, the phone call came that changed everything. It was just a regular Tuesday. I was finishing up a Zoom call with clients when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "Hello, Megan. It's your mother." My stomach dropped. 15 years. It had been 15 freaking years since I'd heard her voice. Not since that day. I drove away from home with nothing but a suitcase and whatever cash I had saved. "Mom," I said, not even trying to sound happy about it. Just acknowledging the fact you need to come home. "Your father's in the hospital." Her voice was shaking. "The family is in serious trouble." For a second, I almost laughed. "Family? What family?" The one that stole my college fund to pay for my sister's pipe dreams. That family. What happened, I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral even though my heart was racing. Your father had a heart attack. He's stable now, but she paused. There's more. We're about to lose the house. The bank is foreclosing in 2 weeks. And there it was, the real reason for the call. After 15 years of silence, they needed money. Of course they did. Why else would they ever contact me? I'm sorry to hear about Dad, I said. And weirdly, I actually meant it. But I don't see what this has to do with me. Please, Megan, just come home. We need to talk in person. I should have said no. I should have hung up. But something in her voice, real fear, maybe actual desperation, got to me. Plus, there was this tiny part of me that wanted to see them squirm to show up successful as hell after they threw me away. I'll think about it, I said, and ended the call. That night, after putting Ethan to bed, I sat on my back porch, staring at the stars. Should I go? Should I ignore them? I texted my best friend Tara, asking what she thought. They only called because they want something. She texted back immediately. You don't owe them shit. She was right. But I kept thinking, what if my dad died? Would I regret not seeing him one last time? And more importantly, could I pass up the chance to show them exactly what they lost when they chose Amber over me? The next morning, I made arrangements to work remotely for a few days. Told Ethan we were taking a short trip and packed our bags. I wasn't going back for them. I was going back for me. The drive to San Antonio took about an hour and a half. Every mile closer made my stomach twist into tighter knots. Ethan was quiet beside me, playing some game on his tablet. Mom, where are we going exactly? He finally asked. We're going to meet your grandparents. I said the words feeling strange in my mouth. I have grandparents. His eyes went wide. You never talked about them before. That's when it really hit me. My parents didn't even know Ethan existed. They had a grandson for 10 years and never once asked about him. What kind of people do that? When we pulled up to the house, I sat in the car for a solid minute, just staring. It looked smaller than I remembered. Run down the paint was peeling, the lawn was overgrown, and one of the shutters was hanging crooked. A far cry from the nice home it was when I left. My mother opened the door before we even reached it. She looked so much older, gray hair, deep wrinkles around her eyes. For a moment, I felt a tiny bit sorry for her. Then her gaze shifted to Ethan, and her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. My father appeared behind her, leaning heavily on a cane. He looked frail. His once broad shoulders now hunched, his eyes too fixed on Ethan. This is my son, Ethan, I said, putting a protective hand on his shoulder. Ethan, these are your grandparents. And just like that, they transformed. Suddenly, they were all smiles and sweet talk. My goodness, you've grown so big. Do you like baseball? I used to coach. You look just like your mother when she was your age. It was like watching actors step into roles. The doting grandparents who had never sent so much as a birthday card or even asked if I had kids. I cut through the act pretty quick. Can we skip this and talk about why I'm here? My mother's fake smile disappeared. She ushered us inside, and that's when I got the full story. Amber took out a large loan to start her design studio. My father explained, his voice weak. The business failed. We mortgaged the house to help her. And now the bank is taking it. They needed $200,000 to save the house. My father looked me straight in the eye and said, that's not much for you now. Is it, Megan? The audacity. Like I owed them anything. Like I hadn't struggled for years because of their choices. Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and there she was, Amber, looking like she just walked off a fashion magazine cover. Designer clothes, perfect hair, immaculate makeup. But her eyes were cold when they landed on me. Well, look who decided to show up, she sneered. Come to play savior. I felt my blood pressure rising, but kept my voice steady. I'm just here to understand the situation. The situation Amber mocked. Is that mom and dad, or losing everything because the bank is run by heartless bastards? And you're our last hope. Miss Big Shot Tech Executive. The way she said it made it clear she thought I didn't deserve my success. Like I'd just gotten lucky instead of working my ass off for years. I took a deep breath, looked around at all three of them and said evenly, only time to think about this. I'll let you know my decision in 3 days. I got us a hotel room downtown. No way was I staying in that house with them. That night, I called my friend Jessica, who's a real estate attorney, and she gave me an idea that would change everything. So let me get this straight, she said, after I explained everything. They stole your college fund, ignored you for 15 years, and now they want you to bail them out. Pretty much. And you're actually considering it. The disbelief in her voice was clear. I sighed. Not for them, but if I don't help and they end up homeless, will I regret it later? Plus, Dad did just have a heart attack. Jessica was quiet for a moment. I have an idea. Why not buy the house outright and put it in your name? Let them live there, but only if they agree to pay back the full amount in 5 years. If they don't, the house remains yours. It was perfect. They'd have a place to live, but on my terms. And Amber wouldn't get another chance to drain them dry. Drop the papers, I told her. I'll be back in 3 days with my answer. Those 3 days were weird. I took Ethan to the Riverwalk, showed him the Alamo, did all the tourist stuff, but my mind was constantly racing, thinking about the situation. Part of me wanted to just walk away. Another part wanted to help, but only on my terms. And a small petty part of me that I'm not particularly proud of wanted to see the look on their faces when I laid out my conditions. 3 days later, Jessica and I walked into my parents' house with a contract. My parents were sitting in the living room looking nervous. Amber was there too, scrolling through her phone like nothing important was happening. I've made my decision, I said, sitting down across from them. Jessica placed the contract on the coffee table. I'll pay off the $200,000 loan. The house will be in my name. You can continue living here, but only as tenants. To regain ownership, you must pay back the full amount within 5 years. If not, the house stays mine. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face crumpled, and she started crying. My father looked like he'd aged another 10 years in those few seconds. But Amber, she exploded. Are you fucking kidding me? She shrieked, jumping to her feet. You're making Mom and Dad pay to live in their own home. What kind of heartless bitch does that? I stood up calmly, gathering the contract. Forget it then. Good luck with the bank. Wait, my father said quickly, reaching out a shaky hand. We accept your terms. Amber stared at him in disbelief. Dad, you can't be serious. We don't have a choice, Amber, he said quietly. The bank takes the house in 2 weeks, otherwise. And that was that. Jessica handled all the paperwork, and 2 weeks later, the house was legally mine. My parents seemed resigned to the new arrangement. I actually felt a little bad for them, but then I remembered how they'd shipped me off without a second thought. So Amber could chase her dreams. I went back to Austin, figuring things would settle down. Boy, was I wrong. About a month later, I decided to do a surprise visit to check on the house. My house now. When I pulled up, there was a beat-up motorcycle in the driveway that I didn't recognize. Weird. I knocked, then used my key when nobody answered right away. The moment I stepped inside, I smelled weed, strong weed. And then I heard laughing from the kitchen. I found my mother cooking my father at the table, and Amber lounging by the counter. But there was someone new. A guy covered in tattoos with a man bun and a vape pen sitting at my parents' table like he owned the place. Megan! My mother looked startled. We weren't expecting you, clearly, I said, eyeing the guy. Who's this? Amber draped herself over the guy. This is Ryan, my boyfriend. Ryan! This is my sister I told you about. Ryan looked me up and down in a way that made my skin crawl. So you're the corporate sellout, niece to finally meet you. I ignored him, turning to my mother. I didn't agree to let Amber and her boyfriend live here. It's just temporary, my mother pleaded, until they get back on their feet. Ryan's between jobs right now, and they couldn't afford their apartment. Of course, Amber loses her business, and instead of getting a real job like everyone else, she moves back in with Mom and Dad and brings her loser boyfriend along for the ride. Not my problem, I said flatly. They have 2 weeks to find somewhere else. Ryan laughed. You can't kick us out. This is your parents' house. Actually, it's my house now. I corrected him, and yes, I can. That night, after I'd gone upstairs to the guest room to do some work, Ryan cornered me in the hallway on my way to the bathroom. He reeked of weed and body odor. You think you're so much better than everyone, don't you? He slurred. Single mom who got lucky with a cushy job. But you slept your way to the top. I tried to step around him, but he blocked my path. Get out of my way, dude. Or what? He leaned in closer. You call Daddy? Oh wait, you can't. Because Daddy's downstairs worried about being homeless, because of his stuck-up daughter. I stood my ground. Get out of my face, Ryan, and get out of my house in 2 weeks. He leaned in even closer. Your kid seems nice. Be a shame if he started picking up bad habits from his Uncle Ryan. Maybe I'll teach him how to smoke his first joint. That was it. I shoved him back so hard he stumbled into the wall. Threaten my son again, and I'll have you arrested so fast your head will spin. 2 weeks. I went back to my room and immediately called Jessica. I need eviction papers for my sister and her boyfriend now. The next morning, I headed back to Austin, my blood still boiling from the encounter with that jerk Ryan. I tried to focus on work on Ethan on anything but the situation, but I knew it wasn't over. One day, I was in the middle of a team meeting at work when my phone started blowing up. Texts, calls, even emails from people I hadn't talked to in years. Are you okay? Have you seen what Amber posted? Everyone's talking about it. I excused myself from the meeting and checked Facebook. And there it was. Amber had posted an old photo of me and Ethan, along with this insane rant. Meet my sister Megan, the heartless corporate sellout who's making our elderly parents homeless. She swooped in after 15 years of silence to steal their house and is threatening to kick them out unless they pay her back, all while she sits in her fancy house making 6 figures. Oh, and she's a terrible mother to her poor son is being raised by nannies while she climbs the corporate ladder. Toxic family gold digger. The comments were a complete dumpster fire. People I went to high school with, distant relatives. Even some of my parents' neighbors all piling on about what a monster I was. Some of them were even tagging my workplace trying to get me fired. But what made my blood boil wasn't the lies about me. It was that she dragged Ethan into it, used his picture without permission, made him part of this garbage. Then my phone rang. It was Ethan's school. My heart dropped. Miss Patterson, this is Mrs. Rodriguez from the front office. Ethan is quite upset. Apparently, some of his classmates have been showing him some social media posts about your family. I felt sick. My hands were shaking as I told my boss I had a family emergency and raced to Ethan's school. When I got there, he was sitting in the counselor's office, his eyes red from crying. "Mom!" he said in the small voice that broke my heart. "Why isn't Amber saying those things about us online?" My friend Jake showed me on his phone. I knelt down and hugged him tight. Sometimes adults don't handle their problems very well. "Buddy, what Aunt Amber did was wrong. None of what she's saying is true." "She said you're a bad mom," he whispered against my shoulder. I pulled back to look him in the eyes. "Do you think I'm a bad mom?" He shook his head immediately. "You're the best mom. Then that's all that matters." I took Ethan home, called Jessica immediately, and told her what happened. "I want them out. All of them now." "Whoa. Slow down," she said. "What happened?" After I explained, she sighed. "I can draw up eviction papers for Amber and Ryan today, but your parents. I'm not evicting my parents. I clarified just the leeches living off them." That afternoon, Jessica drove down from Austin to meet me, and together we returned to the house. Ryan answered the door looking like he'd just woken up, even though it was 2 p.m. "What do you want now?" he sneered. Jessica stepped forward. "All business. Amber Patterson and Ryan Daniels. I'm serving you with eviction papers. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises, or we will proceed with formal eviction through the courts." Ryan laughed. "You can't be serious." Amber appeared behind him, arms crossed. "This is my parents' house. You can't kick me out. Actually, it's my house," I corrected her, and yes, I can. I also handed her a cease and desist letter Jessica had drafted. "Take down that Facebook post and all other social media posts about me and my son immediately, or face legal action for defamation and unauthorized use of my child's image." Amber stepped toward me, her face twisted with anger. "You think you're so powerful. You and your little bastard are just leeches." A pathetic single mom dumped by her husband, pretending to be strong, but still just a miserable failure. I saw red before I could think. I slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Amber eyes went wide with shock, her hand going to her cheek. Ryan yelled and started forward, but Jessica stepped between us. "You can insult me all you want," I said, my voice deadly calm. "But if you ever mention my son again, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." My mother was crying in the corner. My father just looked defeated. Ryan was glaring at me, but staying back. "Sign the papers," Jessica said, pushing the documents forward with no other choice. They signed. Ryan grabbed a duffel bag and stormed out. Amber spent an hour packing, then paused at the door. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." I shrugged. "Try me." After they left, I sat down with my parents in the now quiet living room. My mother was still sniffling. "Why did you have to kick her out?" she asked. "She's your sister. Biology doesn't make us family," I said flatly. "Her actions do, and she crossed a line when she dragged my son into this mess." My father sighed. "We just wanted to help her get back on her feet." "That's always been the problem," I replied. "You're always helping Amber, even when it hurts everyone else." I stayed long enough to make sure Ryan and Amber were really gone, then headed back to Austin. The drive home was a mix of emotions: anger at Amber, frustration with my parents' worry about Ethan, but also a strange sense of relief. Like I'd finally stood up for myself after all these years. The next few months after kicking Amber and Ryan out were interesting, to say the least. Amber made good on her threat to trash me online. She didn't just stop at Facebook. She went full nuclear Instagram, Twitter, even freaking TikTok. She created this whole series called My Sister the Monster, where she'd tell these completely exaggerated or straight-up fake stories about me. According to Amber, I was a neglectful mother who pawned my kid off on nannies, a ruthless corporate climber who'd step on anyone to get ahead. The reason she and Ryan were homeless, they weren't. They moved in with his buddy, a manipulative witch who tricked my elderly parents out of their house. My parents are in their early 60s, hardly elderly. Some of my coworkers saw it. A few clients mentioned it awkwardly during calls. Ethan's teacher pulled me aside at pickup one day to ask if everything was okay at home. I even got called into my boss's office because someone had emailed the company about my elder abuse. Thank God my boss is cool. I explained the situation, showed her the legal documents, and she just rolled her eyes and said, "Family drama. Been there." The worst part was dealing with Ethan's questions. Kids at school had seen some of the videos and were asking him about it. I tried to explain in a way a 10-year-old could understand. "Your aunt is very angry right now," I told him. "Sometimes when people are angry, they say things that aren't true." "But why is she so mad at you?" he asked, confused. How do you explain decades of family dysfunction to a kid? I just said sometimes people think life should be fair, and when it isn't, they blame others instead of themselves. Surprisingly, that satisfied him. Kids are way more perceptive than we give them credit for. As for my parents, they were adjusting to the new normal. They were quiet, subdued around me. They didn't talk about Amber, just polite conversation and careful compliance with the terms of our agreement. I didn't leave them homeless or charge them rent, but they knew where the boundaries were now. Every month I'd bring Ethan to visit. Not because I'd forgiven them, but because I wanted him to have grandparents, even if they weren't great ones. The funny thing about social media drama is that it dies down pretty quick. People get bored and move on to the next outrage. By month 3, Amber posts were getting fewer and fewer interactions. By month 6, she'd given up entirely. I found out through my mom, who quickly regretted bringing her up, that Amber and Ryan had broken up. Apparently, he cheated on her with some bartender. Karma's a bitch, I guess. Last I heard, Amber was working as a receptionist at a hair salon in Houston, a far cry from the famous artist my parents had sacrificed everything for. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a tiny bit of satisfaction about that. But here's where things get complicated. About 7 months after all this went down, my dad had another heart attack. A bad one. I got the call at 3 a.m. from my mom, hysterical, saying the ambulance had just taken him to the hospital. I drove to San Antonio in the middle of the night, leaving Ethan with my neighbor. When I got to the hospital, my mom was sitting alone in the waiting room, looking small and terrified. "Where's Amber?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "I called her," my mom said quietly. She said she'd try to come tomorrow if she could get off work. Translation: her own father might be dying, and she couldn't be bothered to show up immediately. Classic Amber. The doctors eventually came out and told us Dad had suffered a major heart attack but was stable. He'd need bypass surgery, though, and a long recovery period. I stayed with my mom until morning, then went to the house to shower and change. While I was there, I noticed something odd. There were bills piled up on the kitchen counter. Many of them stamped past due or final notice. When I confronted my mom about it, she broke down crying. "We've been trying to make the payments to you, but with your father's medical bills from the first heart attack," she couldn't finish the sentence. I just stood there watching her cry. The performance was impressive, I'll give her that. But I wasn't falling for it this time. This was the same woman who stole my college fund without a second thought, who never once asked if I had enough to eat while I was working 3 jobs. "Funny how you only remember I exist when you need something," I said coldly. My mom looked up, tears still streaming down her face. "Megan, please, we're really struggling. And where's Amber in all this?" I asked, flipping through the bills. "Why isn't she helping?" "She's the reason you're in this mess in the first place. She's going through a hard time right now," my mom said weakly. Of course. Amber was always going through something. Always the victim, always the priority. I spent the morning going through their finances, and it was worse than I thought. They were basically living on Social Security and a tiny pension. The medical bills from Dad's first heart attack had drained their savings. But then I found something interesting. Buried in a stack of mail, a receipt for a $500 birthday gift they'd sent Amber just last month. They were skipping payments to me, but still spoiling her. I slapped the receipt down in front of my mom. "You're struggling so much that you can send Amber $500 birthday gifts." My mom had the decency to look embarrassed. It was her 30th birthday. We wanted to do something special. "You know when the last time was you remembered my birthday?" "Never. Not once in 15 years. That's not fair. Megan, we sent you cards." "Bullshit." I cut her off. "You never sent a thing. Not to me, not to your grandson." I called the hospital to check on Dad, then grabbed my purse to leave. My mom followed me to the door. "Please, Megan, what about the payments? We really can't afford them right now." I turned to face her. "The deal stands. I'm not being tricked again. But your father, my father who sat silently while you stole my future, that father." My mom's face hardened slightly. "We gave you life, Megan. We raised you. Don't you think you owe us something for that?" And there it was, the manipulation, the guilt trip, same old tactics. "I don't know you anything," I said firmly. "You're not homeless. You have a roof over your heads because of me, but I'm not your ATM anymore." I did end up hiring a home health aide for my dad after his surgery. Not for them, but because it was the decent thing to do. I didn't take time off work, though. I'd wasted enough of my life on them. Amber showed up exactly once during Dad's recovery, stayed for about 2 hours, took some selfies in the hospital to post online about being a devoted daughter, then left claiming she had work obligations. I managed to avoid her completely, which was definitely for the best. Was I too harsh on my family? Every time I started to feel a twinge of guilt, I'd remember my mom's face when she told me my college fund was gone. I'd remember all those nights I went hungry while Amber was at her fancy art school. All those Christmases I spent alone all those years, they never once asked about their grandson. I kept the payment plan in place. Business is business. They made their choices, and I made mine. So last week, something happened that turned everything upside down. I was in the middle of a big presentation at work when my assistant handed me a note. Emergency call from Ethan's school. I rushed over to find my kid sitting in the principal's office with a split lip and a black eye. The other kid looked worse. "What happened?" I asked the principal. Explained that the other boy had been taunting Ethan about those videos. Amber posted months ago, said I stole my parents' house and was a terrible mom. Ethan told him to shut up, and when the kid wouldn't stop, Ethan punched him. Both boys got suspended for 3 days. In the car, Ethan asked if he was in trouble. "Fighting isn't the answer," I told him, "but I understand why you were upset." That night, I finally Googled Amber. Turns out she'd rebranded herself as some kind of family trauma specialist online. She was using our story, a totally warped version, to sell life coaching sessions. She even published an ebook called Toxic Sisters Healing from Family Betrayal. She was literally making money off our family drama. The next day, my mom texted that Amber wanted to talk to me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, not to reconcile, but to shut this crap down once and for all. She looked different. Messy bun, casual clothes, no designer stuff, but her eyes still had that calculating look. I've been doing a lot of thinking. She started about how to monetize our family problems. I shot back. She actually looked embarrassed. You saw that? We argued for a bit, rehashing old wounds. Then she dropped this bombshell. I'm broke. Megan completely broke. The coaching thing isn't working. Ryan maxed out my credit cards before he left. I don't know what to do. I laughed in her face. Welcome to real-life Amber. This is what it's like when nobody bails you out. This is what I went through at 19. Except I didn't have designer clothes to sell or parents willing to mortgage their house for me. Please, she said, actual tears in her eyes. I need help. What do you want? I asked coldly. Money, a job, she said. Can't you help me get something at your company? I'll start at the bottom. I couldn't believe it. After everything she'd done, she wanted me to help her. I'll take down all the videos she added. Quickly delete the TikTok. Pull the ebook, everything. I studied her face, looking for the manipulation. There was definitely some there, but also genuine desperation. Take everything down first, I said. Every post, every video, the ebook, everything. Then send me proof. After that, and only after that, we'll talk about job possibilities. But I need money now, not my problem. I cut her off. You created this mess. You can live with the consequences for once. The next week, she actually did take down all her content about me and sent screenshots proving it. I was surprised she followed through. I know someone who runs a small marketing firm in Dallas, an entry-level position, barely above minimum wage. I told him about Amber, the whole ugly truth, and he agreed to interview her. No promises. She texted me. Thank you, but I didn't respond. This wasn't forgiveness. My thought is better. She has some income, so she doesn't go crawling back to my parents for more money. As for my parents, Dad's out of the hospital, but the bills keep piling up. They've started dropping hints about modifying our agreement again. Not happening. I'm not their ATM. Mom texted me, asking if Ethan could stay with them for a weekend. I shut that down immediately. They barely know him, and I don't trust them not to fill his head with their twisted version of our family history. The house is still in my name, and it's staying that way. I've made it clear they need to keep making payments or find somewhere else to live. Business is business. Will Amber keep her end of the bargain? Probably not. She's never faced real consequences before. Will my parents ever understand how badly they screwed me over? Doubtful. They're still the same selfish people, just older and more desperate, but I don't care anymore. I've wasted enough energy on them. My focus is Ethan and my career, the only things that have never let me down. So that's it. The story of how my sister and parents tried to use me one last time, and how I finally learned to stop cleaning up their messes without feeling guilty about it. My daddy, who kicked me out of the family vacation even though I sent them $3,000 a month. So I cut the cash, and what happened next left them desperate. I'm 32 male, and have been married to Sarah, 29 female, for 6 years. We've been together for 9, having met in college when I was finishing my engineering degree. I'm not some perfect guy. I work too much sometimes, forget important dates, and I've been known to leave my socks everywhere. But I've always been loyal, supportive, and honestly, thought we had a pretty damn good thing going. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest. My parents are still married after 35 years, and I had a traditional upbringing. I worked hard to get a good job, bought a house in the suburbs, the whole American dream package. Sarah was studying psychology when we met. She's smart as hell, ambitious, and honestly way out of my league. Looks-wise. She had long brown hair, green eyes that would change color depending on what she wore, and a laugh that could light up a room. We hit it off immediately at a campus volunteering event where we were both helping build houses for Habitat for Humanity. I asked her out for coffee afterward, and the rest is history. Back then, our connection was insane, both emotionally and physically. We'd stay up all night just talking or, not talking. We got married 3 years later in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. We bought our house a year after that. Everything was going according to plan. I was climbing the ladder at my engineering firm, and she was building her own practice as a therapist specializing in family counseling. The irony of that isn't lost on me now. A routine was comfortable. Weekday mornings, we'd have coffee together. Before work weekends, we'd tackle home projects or binge Netflix shows. We had date nights every other Friday. We talked about having kids eventually, but were enjoying our time as just us. The physical side was always good, not like honeymoon phase crazy, but regular and satisfying, or so I thought. So there I was on a random Tuesday night, sprawled on our couch, scrolling through my phone, half watching some garbage sitcom rerun, while I waited for my game to update. Sarah walked in with that look. You know, the one that's part determination, part. I've been practicing this conversation in my head for days. I muted the TV and sat up. We need to talk, she said, arms crossed. Those 4 words are never followed by, I bought you PlayStation 5 games, or let's order pizza. What's up, I asked, trying to remember if I'd forgotten an anniversary or something. She stood there for a second, like she was psyching herself up, then just dropped it. I think we should try a sexless marriage. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because I was 100% sure she was joking. What is this, some kind of divorce prelude? I said with an awkward chuckle. Her face didn't change, if anything, it hardened. I'm completely serious, Mark. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I believe it could make our relationship stronger. Sex is in everything, and I feel like it's holding us back from connecting on a deeper level. My brain basically short-circuited. Who was the standing in my living room? This wasn't the woman who used to send me dirty texts during work meetings. This wasn't the Sarah who once surprised me, wearing nothing but whipped cream on my birthday. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a brick as I tried to process what was happening. Wait, I stammered. Where's this coming from? Are you unhappy? Did I do something wrong? She sighed dramatically, like my questions were so predictable they bored her. No, it's not about that. I've been reading a lot, listening to podcasts, watching these incredible women online who talk about reclaiming their identities, about how intimacy can sometimes be a crutch for deeper issues in a relationship. Podcasts, influencers. I said, so what? You listen to a couple of episodes of some random show and decide our marriage is broken. I wasn't trying to sound defensive, but come on. That's not what I'm saying, she shot back. I'm saying we could try something new, something that challenges us to grow. No sex. I repeated more to myself than to her. In what universe does that strengthen a marriage? Her tone turned defensive. You're being narrow-minded. It's not about never having sex again. It's about taking it off the table for a while and focusing on us as individuals, as partners. I said, what kind of partnership doesn't include intimacy? It was like she was speaking a foreign language, and I couldn't find a translator. You can't just spring this on me like it's some harmless experiment. We're not a couple of college kids trying out a weird new diet. This is our marriage we're talking about. She sat down across from me, her posture calm but her eyes blazing. Exactly. It's our marriage, and I'm saying we need to think about what's truly important. This isn't about rejecting you or punishing you. It's about figuring out who we are without relying on physical connection as a crutch. Crutch. That word hit me harder than it should have. I didn't see our intimacy as a crutch. I saw it as love, as connection, as the glue that held us together when life got messy without it. What were we, roommates, splitting the bills, and occasionally sharing meals? Do you even hear yourself? I couldn't hold it in any longer, because from where I'm sitting, this sounds insane. Her face fell, but she quickly masked it with a veneer of righteousness. You're not even willing to consider it, she said softly, almost like she pitied me. No, I'm not. I fired back, because what you're asking for isn't a marriage. At least, not when I signed up for. We sat there in silence, the tension so thick you could have sliced it with a knife. She looked at me like she was waiting for some grand epiphany to strike, like I'd suddenly see the brilliance of her plan and fall at her feet in gratitude. But all I could feel was confusion, frustration, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about sex. This was about something bigger, something that had been brewing beneath the surface of our relationship for who knows how long. And I had no idea how to fix it. The days following that conversation were surreal. I kept waiting for things to go back to normal, for her to sit down, laugh it off, and admit the whole thing was just a bad idea she'd gotten from some overhyped influencer. But that didn't happen. Instead, it felt like I was living with a stranger. At first, it was subtle. She started spending every waking minute on her phone, always with earbuds in, always intensely focused on whatever she was watching or reading. I'd catch snippets of motivational speeches or self-help mantras if I walked past her. The value of a woman doesn't lie in her ability to please a man. I heard one day as I came into the kitchen. She quickly paused it like a teenager hiding something from their parents. "Interesting stuff," I asked, trying to sound casual. She just shrugged. "Just some things I've been thinking about." That Shrug Man series to talk my ear off about everything, her day, something she read, random thoughts at 3 in the morning. Now she was giving me one-word answers and shrugs like a teenager. Then her appearance changed. Sarah always had a casual style. Jeans, hoodies, t-shirts. Suddenly, she was dressing like she had corporate board meetings every day. Blazer slacks, button-up shirts, even her hair changed. She chopped off her long brown hair that I loved into some kind of severe bob with bangs. When I first saw it, I literally did a double take. 6 years of marriage, and she never once mentioned wanting short hair. "You look different," I said one morning, as she put on lipstick on a Saturday when we had no plans. "Thanks," she replied without looking at me. "Are you going somewhere?" I asked. "No," she said, and that was it. End of conversation. Our home routine changed too. She stopped cooking with me, something we used to enjoy doing together on weekends. She stopped suggesting movies for our Friday night watch parties. She even rearranged her side of the closet, getting rid of all the comfy clothes she used to wear around the house. Every day she seemed more distant. The woman who used to curl up next to me on the couch was now sitting ramrod straight in a separate chair, engrossed in her phone. If I tried to talk to her about work friends, or literally anything, she'd give me short, disinterested responses. What really got to me were the buzzwords. She started dropping into conversations. Suddenly, everything was about emotional labor, male entitlement setting boundaries, and feminine energy terms I'd never heard her use. "In all our years together, I'm focusing on finding myself," she said. One evening when I tried to bring up what was happening between us. "Finding yourself, what does that even mean?" "You're right here," I said, unable to hide my frustration. "You wouldn't understand," she replied, her voice flat. That line cut deeper than it should have. Was I suddenly too dense to grasp what was going on in my own marriage? We used to be able to talk about anything. Now I was being dismissed like some clueless idiot. I tried to maintain some normalcy. I kept inviting her to watch shows with me, to go for walks, to visit our favorite restaurants. She'd either decline outright or agree, but then spend the entire time distracted by her phone. Sex was completely off the table, of course. If I even touched her casually, a hand on her shoulder or a kiss on the cheek, she'd stiffen or subtly move away. The Sarah I knew, the woman I fell in love with, seemed to be vanishing by the day, and in her place was this cold, detached stranger who seemed annoyed by my very existence. About 2 weeks after the initial sexless marriage bomb, Sarah marched into the living room while I was watching basketball. Without saying anything, she sat down and thrust her phone in my face. "Look at this," she demanded, pointing to an Instagram post. It was from some account called Patriarchy Smashers with about 200,000 followers. The profile was full of quotes about female liberation and breaking the chains of male expectations. The post she showed me was a long rant about how sexual relationships with men were tools of oppression and how women could reclaim their power by rejecting the male gaze and physical demands. "What do you think?" she asked, staring at me like I was about to be tested. I took a moment to actually read the post. It was basically claiming that any woman in a traditional relationship was being subjugated. That sexual intimacy with men was inherently oppressive, and the true liberation came from disconnecting from male validation. The comments were full of women praising these insights and sharing how they were setting boundaries with the men in their lives. "What do I think? I think this is absolute nonsense." I said honestly, this person doesn't know us or our relationship. How could some random Instagram feminists know what's best for our marriage? Her eyes narrowed. "It's not about her specifically," she said with a condescending tone. I'd never heard from her before. "It's about the concept. Don't you think there's truth in how society conditions women to believe their worth is tied to sexual desirability? Sure, in theory, but that's not our relationship. I've never treated you like that. You're seriously going to let some hashtag activist influence our marriage? She sighed dramatically. This is exactly what I expected. You're completely closed off to new perspectives that challenge your male privilege. Male privilege. In the 9 years we'd been together, Sarah had never once used phrases like that. Now suddenly I'm the patriarchy, new perspectives or brainwashing, because this doesn't sound like you at all, I said, trying to stay calm. She stood up abruptly. You wouldn't understand. Your entire life experience is filtered through male entitlement. Then she walked out, leaving me sitting there wondering what had happened to my wife that night. I lay in bed next to the stranger, staring at the ceiling, trying to pinpoint when everything changed. She was right there, inches away, but somehow miles apart. The woman I'd built a life with, planned a future with, seemed to have been replaced by some radicalized version I didn't recognize. The next day, I came home from work to find her organizing some kind of women's circle in our living room. 5 women I'd never met were sitting in a circle on our floor burning sage, which I'm allergic to, by the way, and taking turns talking about dismantling internalized misogyny or something. Sarah barely acknowledged me as I walked in. We'll be done in a couple of hours, she said dismissively, like I was some delivery guy interrupting their important ceremony. I grabbed my laptop and retreated to our bedroom, listening to these strangers in my living room talk about how men were basically the source of all evil in the world. One of them was going on about how she'd freed herself from the male gaze by cutting off her husband's physical access to her body. The others murmured their approval and validation. Was this what Sarah was planning? Complete physical estrangement. I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't a rough patch or a communication issue. This was my wife being systematically turned against our relationship by some radical ideology. After tossing and turning all night, a disturbing thought crept into my mind. What if there's someone else? I hated myself for thinking it, but it made a weird kind of sense. The sudden emotional distance the appearance changes. The secretive behavior with her phone. People don't just wake up one day and decide to drastically change their marriage unless something else is going on. While she was in the shower the next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I tried to check her phone. It was locked, of course, and the passcode had been changed. We used to know each other's passcodes. Not because we snooped, but because we had nothing to hide. When did that change? Later that day, I started paying closer attention to her behavior. She was constantly glued to her phone, angling the screen away when I walked by. She disappeared into our home office for hours, claiming she was journaling or participating in women's empowerment workshops. Every notification made her jump to check her phone. If I walked into a room while she was on it, she'd quickly switch apps or turn the screen off. Classic guilty behavior. Right? One night, I pretended to be asleep when she got into bed. She immediately reached for her phone and started typing away occasionally, smiling at whatever response she was getting. Who is she texting at midnight, and why did it make her smile when nothing I'd done in weeks had earned more than a cold stare? Who were you always texting? I asked the next evening as she furiously typed on her phone. She looked up startled, then composed herself. Just some women from my feminist collective were discussing the systemic oppression inherent in traditional marriage dynamics. Your feminist collective? Since when are you in a collective? Why does it matter to you? She snapped. Are you trying to control who I talk to now? That's textbook patriarchal behavior. It matters because you're my wife, and you've been acting like I'm your enemy for weeks now. Do these strangers know more about our marriage than I do? I said. Maybe they understand me better than you do. She said coldly, then got up and left the room. That comment felt like a slap in the face. 9 years together, and suddenly some online collective understood her better than me. I started noticing other changes too. She'd put her phone face down whenever I was nearby. She'd take calls in another room, speaking in hushed tones. She changed all her passwords, email, social media, even our shared Amazon account. One afternoon, I came home early from work and heard her laughing in her office. A genuine, joyful laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. When I knocked and opened the door, she quickly ended her video call and switched to a blank document on her screen. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, I said, watching her face carefully. It's fine, just wrapping up, she replied, not meeting my eyes. Who were you talking to? Sounded like you were having fun. Just the collective we were discussing. Dismantling beauty standards. Yeah, dismantling beauty standards. Real hilarious topic. The paranoia began eating away at me. Every little thing felt like evidence. The phone glued to her hand, the locked screens, the vague answers, the late-night texting, the secret calls, the appearance changes. My mind was creating worst-case scenarios on a loop. Was she emotionally cheating? Physically cheating, being manipulated by some kind of cult? I couldn't concentrate at work. I was losing sleep. I kept replaying our history, trying to figure out if I'd missed warning signs. Had she been unhappy for a long time? Was there someone specific who'd caught her attention? Or was this truly just some bizarre ideological conversion? One night, she fell asleep early, and her laptop was still open on the kitchen table. I knew it was wrong, but I was desperate to understand what was happening. I expected to find her browser history cleared, but instead, I hit the jackpot. She'd forgotten to log out of her email. Most of it was newsletters from these feminist accounts and updates from various empowerment forums. But then I saw a folder labeled Personal with dozens of emails from someone named Alex. I clicked on one from 2 weeks ago, Sarah. Our conversation last night was incredible. I've never connected with anyone on such a deep level. You're truly awakening to your authentic power. And it's beautiful to witness the way you describe your situation at home. It's so common. Men simply cannot understand the emotional labor women perform daily in heteronormative relationships. You deserve so much more than what you've settled for. I can't wait for our call tomorrow. Alex, another more recent one. I'm so proud of you for setting boundaries. That's a huge step. Remember, you don't owe him physical intimacy. Your body is yours alone. These feelings of guilt are just your conditioning. Break free from that. I'm here for you. Whenever you need to talk, same time tonight. Alex. Who was Alex? Was it a man or a woman? It wasn't clear from the emails, but whoever it was, they were clearly encouraging Sarah to blow up our marriage. I kept reading and found an email from 3 days ago. Sarah, the more you tell me about him, the more I see the classic signs of emotional manipulation. He's trying to make you feel guilty for your personal growth. That's not love, it's control. You deserve space to explore who you are outside of his expectations. I'm here to support you every step of the way. Alex, I was livid. This person had never met me, knew nothing about our relationship, and was painting me as some kind of abusive monster. And Sarah was just accepting it, feeding this stranger details about our private life. I scrolled through more emails and found a meditation group Sarah had apparently joined. LED by this Alex person, there were Zoom links for nightly sessions and references to private calls they'd been having. As I dug deeper, I found donation receipts. Sarah had sent money to this authentic feminine collective, $200 here, $350 there, adding up to over $3,000 from our joint account over the past month. We always consulted each other before making any purchase over $500. And here she was sending thousands to some online group. I also found a PDF titled Liberation Guide that outlined a 12-step process for freeing yourself from patriarchal relationship structures. Step 1 was recognize your conditioning. Step 2 was establish physical boundaries, including suggestions for creating a sexless relationship. Step 6 was divest from male approval with tips on changing your appearance to please yourself rather than men. It was like a cult handbook. Everything suddenly made sense. The personality change, the new vocabulary, the coldness, the appearance changes, the women's circles, the secrecy. Sarah was being manipulated by whatever this group was. And this Alex person was messing with her head. I snapped a few photos of the most damning emails with my phone, including the donation receipts, then carefully closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. I needed time to process this and figure out my next move. I didn't confront her immediately. Part of me was still processing what I'd found, and part of me wanted to see how far this would go. Over the next few days, I noticed she was attending these meditation sessions every night, always with her door closed and locked. I did some research on this authentic feminine collective. Their website was full of vague empowerment language and testimonials from women who had transformed their lives through the program. The founder, Alexandra Reeves. Alex presumably described herself as a spiritual guide and feminist, awakened her who had liberated herself from patriarchal bondage after leaving her husband of 15 years. The site offered different membership tiers from a basic $14 a month for access to group sessions up to a $490 a month transformation package that included private coaching. There was also a donate button for supporting the collective's mission. It had all the hallmarks of a sophisticated scam targeting vulnerable women. The breaking point came after dinner one night. I'd cooked as I did most nights now, and she'd barely touched her food, too busy checking the time every few minutes. "I need to go," she said, standing up and leaving her plate. "I have an important session at 8. "Sure," I said, my tone flat. "You go lock yourself in the office with your new best friend Alex while I clean up again." She froze, then slowly turned to face me. "What did you just say?" I put down my fork and met her gaze. "You heard me, Alex. Your guru or whatever, who's been filling your head with all this nonsense about me being some kind of oppressive monster." Her face went white, then flushed red. "You went through my emails. How dare you invade my privacy like that, privacy? Since when do we have secrets in this marriage? You've been talking to some stranger about our personal life for weeks, letting them convince you I'm some kind of villain, and I'm the bad guy for finding out. I said you had no right." She shouted, hands shaking. "This is exactly why I need space from you. You're controlling and possessive." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Controlling. I've been watching my wife turn into a complete stranger, spouting phrases she never used before, treating me like an enemy, and apparently sharing every detail of our relationship with some random collective online. And I'm supposed to just sit back and be cool with it. Alex understands what I'm going through. The collective supports my journey of self-discovery without judgment. They see me as a complete person, not just as an object for male gratification, she said. Object? Are you kidding me? 9 years together, and you think that's how I see you? I've supported every ambition you've ever had. I encouraged you to get your master's degree to start your own practice. When have I ever treated you like an object? You just don't get it, she said with infuriating condescension. Your male perspective blinds you to the subtle ways you exert control. And Alex's perspective is so much more enlightened. I guess this person who's never met me, never seen us together, knows more about our relationship than I do. I said Alex is helping me find my authentic self. Your authentic self was just fine before this cold got its hooks in you, I said. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. It's not a cult. It's a supportive community of like-minded individuals who understand the female experience. A supportive community that encourages you to blow up your marriage, that tells you your husband is manipulative and controlling based on absolutely nothing that has you changing everything about yourself. Sounds like the textbook definition of a cult to me, I said. You're just threatened because I'm no longer centering my life around your needs and desires. Centering your life. When have I ever asked you to do that? You're the one who changed overnight. You're the one who decided our marriage should suddenly be sexless. You're the one spending every waking moment getting brainwashed by strangers online, I said. The argument escalated into the worst fight of our marriage. She called me toxic, controlling, emblematic of patriarchal entitlement. I called her brainwashed, selfish, and unrecognizable. Then I brought up the money. And by the way, I know about the $3,000 you've given them from our joint account. That stopped her cold. How did you? I saw the receipts in your email. You've been sending hundreds of dollars to these people without even mentioning it to me. How is that okay? We always talk about big purchases, but suddenly you're funneling thousands to some online guru without a word. It's an investment in my growth, she said, but she had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. It's a scam, Sarah. These people are taking advantage of you. They're isolating you from your support system. That's what cults do. They convince you that everyone who questions them is your enemy. They get you to change your appearance, your language, your relationship, and then they take your money. You don't understand what this means to me, she insisted. But I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes for the first time. At one point, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Are you sleeping with Alex? She looked at me like I'd slapped her. How dare you? That just shows how little you think of me, that you immediately assume I'm cheating. What am I supposed to think? You suddenly want a sexless marriage. You're constantly hiding your phone. You're having private sessions with some guru who's telling you your husband is the enemy. Connect the dots for me, Sarah. I said I would never cheat on you. The fact that you'd even suggest it just proves you don't know me at all. I don't know you anymore, because you're not the same person. The Sarah I married wouldn't join some online cult and let them dictate our relationship, I said. She stormed off to the office, slamming the door behind her. I heard her lock it, and minutes later, the muffled sound of her talking to someone, presumably her precious Alex. I sat in our kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of the dinner I'd made, wondering how we'd gotten here. Something had to give. We couldn't keep living like this. After that blowout, we barely spoke for days. I tried to process everything, weighing my options. I could continue fighting for a marriage with someone who clearly didn't want the same thing anymore. Or I could take control of my own life. I chose the latter without telling Sarah. I contacted a lawyer and learned everything I needed to know about protecting myself. Then I made an appointment with a financial advisor and began quietly separating our finances. I opened a new bank account, transferred my portion of our savings, and made sure my paycheck would go to the new account. I documented everything, the changes in her behavior, the emails from Alex, the money she'd sent to the collective. I even recorded a couple of our arguments where she was spouting cult-like language just in case. Next, I called my buddy Ryan, who owns a real estate company. Within a week, he found me a sweet apartment downtown. Modern, great views, walking distance to shops and restaurants. I signed the lease immediately. All the while, Sarah continued with her sessions and barely acknowledged my existence. Fine by me. It gave me time to execute my plan. I made sure all my important documents were secure: birth certificate, passport, financial records. I contacted all our shared accounts, utilities, insurance, streaming services, and either removed my name or created new accounts for myself. On a Friday when Sarah was at work, I packed up everything that mattered to me: clothes, personal items, gaming setup, heirlooms. I left all the furniture, most of which I had paid for, and anything we bought together. I wasn't interested in fighting over material things. The last thing I did was leave an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a note that read, "Sarah, you wanted a sexless marriage. I'm giving you one, better, a husband-less marriage. I've moved out and separated our finances. You can have the house for now. I've paid the mortgage through next month to give you time to figure things out. My lawyer will contact you about next steps. Enjoy your authentic self, Mark." I also left printouts of all the emails between her and Alex, the donation receipts, and screenshots of the Liberation Guide steps, just so she knew exactly why I was leaving. Then I walked out, drove to my new apartment, and started my new life. My first weekend of freedom was surreal. I set up my new place, went grocery shopping without having to check if anyone wanted anything specific, and slept in as late as I wanted. I reconnected with friends. I hadn't seen much because Sarah had gradually isolated me from them with complaints about their toxic masculinity or whatever. I joined a local gym and signed up for pickup basketball on Sundays, something I'd always enjoyed, but had given up because Sarah needed me home for her self-care. Sundays, for 3 days, absolute silence. Then the tsunami hit. First came the text, "Where are you? We need to talk. You can't just leave like this. Please call me." I didn't respond. Then the calls started, dozens of them, which I sent straight to voicemail. Her messages became increasingly desperate. "Mark, please. This is a mistake. I never meant for this to happen. We can work this out." Still, I maintained radio silence. She showed up at my office on day 4, but I'd already told the receptionist not to let her in. She sent emails, left voicemails, even contacted mutual friends trying to reach me. On day 5, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Thinking it might be my lawyer, I answered. "Hello, is this Mark?" a smooth, condescending voice asked. "Who's asking?" I replied. "This is Alex from the Authentic Feminine Collective. I think we should talk." I nearly laughed out loud. "There is absolutely nothing you and I need to discuss. I understand you're upset, but Sarah is devastated. She's had a realization about how important you are to her." Alex said, "Ohashi. That's fascinating. Tell me, Alex, how much money has Sarah donated to your collective over the past month?" Silence? That's what I thought. Listen carefully. Stay away from my wife and stop filling her head with manipulative nonsense. If you contact me again, I'll be filing a harassment report. Are we clear? I hung up before they could respond. 2 weeks passed. I settled into my new place, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages, and started hitting the gym daily. I was sleeping better, eating better, and feeling more like myself than I had in months. My lawyer informed me that Sarah had been served with separation papers. She hadn't contested anything yet, which surprised me. I expected her to fight to drag things out to make demands. Then Sarah showed up at my office. She looked terrible. Eyes, puffy hair, unwashed, wearing an old sweatshirt instead of her new empowered woman wardrobe. My receptionist told me she'd been waiting in the lobby for 3 hours, refusing to leave. Against my better judgment, I agreed to 5 minutes. "You look good," she said quietly as she sat across from me. "Thanks." "What do you want, Sarah?" "I made a horrible mistake," she whispered, tears welling up. "I got caught up in something I didn't understand." "Alex. The group. They're not what I thought. And what were they?" I asked. She looked down. "After you left, I did some research. They target women in stable relationships, make them doubt everything, isolate them from their partners, then ask for money. I've given them almost $5,000 from our joint account." I leaned back in my chair. "That's unfortunate." "Mark, please. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I was feeling bored, restless. And then I found these videos online that seemed to speak to me. Before I knew it, I was in so deep." Her voice broke. "So what do you want from me now?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I want to come home," she sobbed. "I miss you. I miss us. I've been seeing a real therapist, not some online guru, and she's helping me understand how I got manipulated. I'll pay back every cent I gave them. I'll delete all my accounts. I'll do whatever it takes." "And the sexless marriage idea?" I asked. She looked mortified. "That was never really what I wanted. They convinced me that physical intimacy was a form of submission to patriarchal expectations." God, it sounds so ridiculous saying it out loud. And the women's circles, the radical feminist rhetoric, the complete personality transplant. I pressed. "I got swept up in it," she admitted. "It's like they knew exactly what to say to make me feel special. Enlightened, like I was part of something important. They isolated me, bit by bit, made me doubt everything I knew. Classic cult tactics. But I couldn't see it until you left." I checked my watch. "Your 5 minutes are up. Sarah, please." She begged, reaching for my hand across the desk. "I love you. I made a terrible mistake. I'll do anything to fix this." I pulled my hand away. "The thing is, Sarah, I'm actually happier now. These past few weeks have been enlightening. I've realized I deserve someone who won't throw away 9 years, based on some Instagram cult's advice. Someone who trusts me enough to talk about problems instead of ambushing me with ultimatums. Someone who values my feelings as much as their own." "That's me," she insisted. "The real me, not the brainwashed version." "Please, Mark, give me another chance. You know what really hurts?" I said, leaning forward. "It's not the sexless marriage proposal. It's not even the money you sent them. It's that you believe some stranger on the internet over your husband of 6 years. Is that you were so quick to see me as the enemy, to twist everything I've ever done into some form of oppression. How do we come back from that?" Tears streamed down her face. "I don't know," she whispered. "But I want to try. I'll do anything." I stood up. "I'll think about it. That's all I can offer right now." As I walked her out, she turned to me with puffy, desperate eyes. "Can I call you?" "Maybe we could have dinner next week, just to talk." "I'll call you," I said firmly. "Maybe, but don't sit around waiting." I watched her walk away, shoulders slumped. Completely different from the cold, empowered feminist who had demanded a sexless marriage just a month before. The truth is, I don't know if I'll call her. Part of me still loves the woman I married, but I'm not sure she exists anymore. The other part is enjoying my freedom and the attention I've been getting as a newly single guy with his life together. 3 days later, I received an unexpected email. It was from Alex, but not to me. It was a mass email sent to everyone in the collective, and Sarah had forwarded it to me. It read, "Beloved sisters, it is with a heavy heart that I must announce the Authentic Feminine Collective will be taking a brief hiatus while I attend to some personal matters. Some individuals have made baseless accusations about our sacred work, and I must focus my energy on addressing these attacks. Your monthly subscriptions will remain active to secure your place when we return. Stay strong in your authenticity. Alex Sarah had added a note for your information. She's running because 3 other women and I have reported her to the authorities for fraud. Thought you'd want to know. I had to admit I was impressed. The old Sarah was showing signs of life-taking action, fighting back against someone who had wronged her. It was the first glimpse of the woman I'd fallen in love with that I'd seen in months. That evening, my doorbell rang. It was Sarah again, but different this time. She looked more put together. Her hair was back to its natural style. The severe makeup was gone, and she was wearing jeans and a t-shirt like she used to. "I didn't come to beg," she said immediately. "I just wanted to drop this off." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000, the full amount she'd given to the collective, plus extra. "I sold my designer clothes and some jewelry to cover it," she explained. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but it's a start." "Thank you." I said, genuinely surprised you didn't have to do that. "Yes, I did," she replied. "And there's something else." She handed me a folder containing printouts of emails she'd sent to other women in the collective, warning them about Alex's manipulation tactics. She'd also included screenshots of a support group she'd started for women who had been similarly manipulated. "I'm trying to help others who got sucked in," she said. "It's the only way I can make something positive out of this mess." I nodded, impressed despite myself. "That's actually really great, Sarah." "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just thought you should know. I'm working on myself for real this time, not some fake, authentic self nonsense." As she turned to leave, I found myself saying, "Maybe we could get coffee sometime, just to talk." She looked back, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I'd like that. I still don't know what's going to happen with us. Maybe we'll try again. Maybe we won't. But for the first time in months, I feel like I'm talking to the real Sarah again. Not some cult-programmed robot. And right now, I'm in control of my life, my choices, and my future. Whatever happens next will be on my terms. Either way, I'm calling the shots now, and it feels damn good.